So I'm about to say something that will sound super crazy. You ready for it? Okay, so I'm finally at the point where I can address my true target audience, and that's nature loving Jamaican scientists. Now, if I told you guys the truth years ago, then you'd have thought that I'm crazy and a bad scientist, and I couldn't have that because I love science too much to have people out here thinking that I don't respect science and the scientific method. So, now that I have gathered enough evidence to support what I truly believe, now I'm going to tell you the truth. So I'm about to say something that will sound super crazy. You ready for it? I believe that eternal life on earth is possible and that I can use Obeah to help keep you alive if you help me to turn the climate crisis around, if you help me to save the planet. That sounds extremely bonkers. I know, I'm aware. But hear me out, please. I'm going to introduce Obeah to you, properly introduce it to you, and then you can decide from there if you want to experiment with the idea that you can live forever on Earth in better conditions, obviously. But at the end of the day, this is what scientists do, right? We have a hypothesis and we test the hypothesis to see whether it's true or not. So yeah, let me give you some more information first. First of all, you should be skeptical of my claim that immortality on Earth is possible if you're a good scientist. However, if you read this book, Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, by Harvard geneticist Dr. David Sinclair, then you'll see that research is being done on how human lifespans can be extended. In the book, he speaks about how we should treat aging as a curable disease and even goes on to give some suggestions on what one can do to potentially slow down the aging process. However, even if you take good care of yourself with the expectation of living for a long time, you cannot guarantee that a truck won't unexpectedly run you over, or especially if you're in Jamaica, that a gunshot not gonna reach you if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, if you were to believe that you could be immortal, you'd need to believe that something can protect you from unlucky incidents that may lead to your demise. That's where Obeah comes in. But a lot of you probably don't believe in the supernatural or magic, so let me tell you a little story to hopefully convince you that with God, all things are possible. I met a man on Tinder at the beginning of 2020 and he called himself a dopey conqueror. In October 2020, he used sage on me when I was under the influence of marijuana and alcohol. It felt like he was drawing something out of me, but I can be quite stubborn, so I chose to hold on to it. But that caused me to start becoming conscious of Lilith. I didn't particularly believe in the supernatural at the time, but I did observe my body mind's reaction to the sage and decided to experiment with it myself because that's what scientists do, right? We make observations and we experiment. So, a couple weeks later, it came to a point where Lilith, who is also known as Regina Immortalis, or the Immortal Queen, by the way, and this is, of course, very important to the story, as you can imagine. She said to me that for me to get through what I was about to go through, I'd have to bind us together so that nobody would be able to separate us, like what Mr. Duppy Conqueror was trying to do. I used sage to do so, then ended up on a psych ward a couple days later. Then, for a little over 2 years, I was out here looking like I was going crazy over a certain dancehall artist who used to chant in his music. And for those who don't know, something that some Obeah practitioners include in their practices is chanting. And sometimes they don't even know what they're chanting. That's just a little fun fact. Anyways, during the time I was losing my mind, the ancestors told me that I couldn't off myself because to get their revenge for slavery, they stored the key for immortality within me. So if I were to choose to end it all at the time, my soul would never know rest. I knew it was unlikely that they were bluffing because I did choose to work with a demon who is also known as the Queen of Hell. At the time, though, I really hated it here, and my number one desire was to die. So the idea that I'm immortal and basically stuck on this planet meant to me that I was in hell anyway. But the ancestors told me what I'd need to do to escape that hell. They said that the first condition of immortality is belief. So basically, They were saying that if I wanted to bestow the gift of immortality onto anyone else, they'd first have to believe that they can live forever. So, to decide on who I wanted to believe me, I had to think about who I'd want to be stuck here in hell with for it to feel less like hell to me. In general, it was just highly intelligent people, people with empathy who tried to make the world a better place, and people who also didn't want to be here. But on an individual level, there were only two people who I definitely needed to be here for me to not feel like I'm trapped in hell. And those people were Gavin and Marco. As you know, they're both scientists, so I knew that if there were any truth to my delusions about immortality, I had to ensure that I could explain my supernatural experiences in terms of science and psychology for them to believe me. So, I was using alkaline to help me find a scientific way to connect my psychosis to the dopey conqueror using sage on me so that my two favorite people would be able to believe in magic so that they could gain eternal life on earth with me if it actually is possible and if they actually want to be here with me forever. 3 years ago, when I finally had everything I needed to explain that sage triggered my psychosis, though, I was a little thrown off because I realized that heartbreak is actually what triggered my psychosis because the heartbreak happened before the sage incident, and it just happened to be Marco who broke my heart. That's when I realized that the painful memory I recalled back in 2021, where I witnessed the love of my life being tortured and killed in front of me, was probably a real memory. And I started realizing that if it was a real memory, then he had to break my heart in this lifetime so I could remember that heartbreak from our previous life. If Marco is indeed that man, then he is the one John 3:16 speaks about, in which it says that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. So, my dear scientist friends, I have prepared a document to make it easier for you to believe in him and in my witchcraft so that you can gain eternal life. I'm sharing it with my two favorite people first, though, of course. But what I'm saying is that based on the data I've collected over these past 6 years of the pandemic, I believe that it's likely that my Obeah can keep people alive for as long as possible if they are living in right relationship with the earth and my beloved animal friends. If y'all know me, you know that I love animals more than anything on this planet. So, anyways, I'd love for you guys to test out that theory with me. It's important for you to understand, though, that this has everything to do with my religious trauma. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they claim that one day the dead will come back to life, the earth will become a paradise, and humans will become perfect and live forever on that paradise earth. So, in the document I'm sending to Dr. Campbell and Dr. Brown, I use theoretical biology and theoretical physics to explain why I believe Dr. Brown and I have been here before, which would mean that the dead have indeed come back to life. I also explain how I gathered evidence to support the claim that my children's father, my agnostic soulmate, who I haven't met yet, but I'm pretty sure he's out there, is the most genetically perfect man to ever exist. If that's true, then it would mean that humans have evolved to the point of perfection. So maybe the witnesses were right about paradise on earth and immortality. So, believing in him to gain eternal life, it is necessary, but it is not enough. You would have to demonstrate that you honor the earth by helping me to turn the climate crisis around. And as scientists, this is something that's 100% within our capabilities to do. Like, I believe in me and I believe in you, I believe in us. We can save the planet. So, you would have nothing to lose and everything to gain if you embarked upon this journey of experimenting with Obeah with me.